House Live. I'm Vanessa Collette here at the Canadian Investor Conference, Toronto. I'm thrilled to have Mickey Fulp with us, the Mercenary Geologist. Welcome, Mickey. Great to see you again.
Likewise, Vanessa. Always my pleasure.
Now, Mickey, what are you the most excited about right now?
Well, there probably isn't a lot to be excited about with the strength of the U.S. dollar. Commodities are down pretty much across the board, but if you look in real terms, it's just because of the strength of the U.S. dollar. But the dollar amounts have fallen for all commodities, with one exception, and that's uranium. Now, uranium hit a low of $28, based at 28 a couple of months ago, but it's had a nice run since then, up 30% in 2 months, and we would look for that price to be higher. So my longer term contrarian play would be uranium stocks, and in particular I like the U.S. uranium producers.
Is it looking a little bit like uranium in 2000, 2001?
It got down to $10 then, and so you could use that analogy that $28 was the $10 of that period,
right, okay.
14 years ago. But we would certainly hope for a quicker and a recovery than we saw, because 2000, 2001, the uranium price didn't really start to move to about 2005. So,
right, and I remember that high it hit was pretty exciting.
Yeah, and that was really overblown and overvalued, done by speculators in the market,
right.
Who hopefully learned their lesson with the uranium crash. But the commodity is always driven by some speculation. You know, we'd be happy if it gets to $50. At the beginning of the year, I predicted 40 by the end, but it takes $50 uranium for a lot of producers to make money, and that's what's happened. Production supply's been disrupted, destructed, if you will.
Well, what's your take on Cameco?
I do not really follow Cameco because it's a big integrated uranium company. So really my sweet spot is the U.S. uranium producers, because that's all they do is produce.
U.S. uranium?
Yep.
And are these small caps, mid caps, large caps?
They would be mid cap, or technically small cap companies, but with U.S. market listings, AMEX listing, the market, MKT listings.
So uranium is very exciting. What about copper?
Well, I always like copper, and copper's 304 this morning, again based on the strength of the U.S. dollar and a slowing of growth in China. But fact remains, we still use 4% more copper every year. We've got a quarter of the world still without electricity. You can't transmit electricity without copper. Southeast Asia is becoming electrified, so long-term bull on copper.
I have to ask about silver, just because we saw this 4-year low. What do you think happened there?
It's oversold right now. Silver's oversold. We've had this strength of the U.S. dollar. Silver is always more volatile than gold, so at some point the gold-silver ratio will reach a sweet spot for me, and I haven't bought silver in a long time, but you know, when that sweet spot happens, and I would say it's certainly well above 70.
It's 70, isn't it close to 70 to 1 now?
Yeah, it is. Probably 75 is my sweet spot.
75 to 1, okay.
And I'll probably go in and buy some silver versus my normal buying of gold, because I am a hoarder of physical precious metals.
Right, right. And you're buying gold on a regular basis, monthly basis?
Well, I buy gold on dips,
on the dips?
So
okay.
I like the price now. But at the beginning of the year, I said I expected it to test 1,200 again, and I think it may do that. But also at the beginning of the year, I said I expected it to close higher at the end of the year. So it started out on January 2nd or whatever at 1,220, and so I'm hopeful that it'll close above that at the end of the year. But certainly these gold prices, if you buy bullion, this is pretty attractive right now.
Yeah, it's looking good. So how do you feel about the whole junior sector right now, the venture sector?
Well, it's, to be frank, in the toilet. You know, usually we would expect a rally post Labor Day. And we haven't seen that rally, and the real reason it's been scuttled by the strength of the U.S. dollar and the lowering of commodity prices. So until commodities turn around, the venture exchange is not going to be doing very well.
And why is the U.S. dollar so strong right now? Is it
I have no idea. You know, we've had some better economic news, some ideas that interest rates were going to be raised, quantitative easings being toned down. I think
it's a lot of talk.
it becomes a matter of the U.S. dollars, U.S. economy, U.S. dollars in better shape than anything else you can compare it to.
It's just a relative comparison.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Indeed. Now let's talk about medical marijuana. You see a bubble happening here?
Absolutely. You know, what's happened is very similar to the dot-com bubble in late 99 and 2000, where the dregs of the dot-coms who couldn't get financed in the Silicon Valley migrated to Seattle and migrated to Vancouver, and we had a bunch of failed resource juniors that took their failed companies, the lifestyle companies, the ones that mine the stock market, too many shares, rollback company coming, little working capital or even negative working capital. They run to the next big thing. Of which they're not qualified, management's not qualified to manage. I see that thing happening in the dot bond bubble, if you will. But certainly, there, as with all bubbles, 95% of the companies will fail. You expect a parabolic rise and fall in stock prices. We've seen that, but there will be some legitimate companies come out of that. I would look for the downstream end of it. The grow-ops are risky because you don't know the supply-demand fundamentals. You don't know, that's not clear right now.
The price should be.
Price is not clear. So if you look at a vertically integrated company or a downstream supplier, I use an analogy in the gold rushes of the Western U.S. It wasn't the prospectors that made the money. It was the merchant that ran the general store, and the suppliers and the infrastructure, the guys taking the prospectors around the Cape Horn in the ships, the railroads, the financiers. So look at the downstream end of that.
Absolutely. Are any of these medical marijuana companies legitimate, do you think?
Absolutely. They're, and so the first wave was what I was referring to with failed resource juniors. Now we're starting to see some IPOs of a second wave of real companies.
This is the end of the second prohibition. I mean, this is a major
event.
Yeah,
and it really is, and it's going to get bigger. You know, there's a significant number of U.S. states where medical marijuana is legal, recreational marijuana is legal, and two, it's going to be attempted to be regulated. There is such a black market on it. I don't think that will ever quite go away.
Right, it'll take decades.
The deal with Canadian companies there is even more regulated, and there's a limited number of these grow-op licenses. So that's not going to be the sweet spot. But if you look at the entire risk-reward profile, it's something that I've chosen. I'll throw another one-liner out. I think I'll bogart my cash, my stash of cash, and
save it for the miners?
and save it for something I'm comfortable with.
Absolutely. Great. Well, it was great having you on the show again, Mickey, as always.
Thanks a lot, Vanessa.